This happened during spring break of my junior year of college. Me and my three closest friends, Kevin, Ali, and Seb, decided to go car camping in Colorado. We'd been doing these trips together since freshman year, but we were all pretty broke that semester, so we went with dispersed camping instead of paying for an actual campground. I found this spot on one of those camping apps that showed free sites. It was somewhere outside of Buena Vista, tucked back on this Forest Service road that seemed to go on forever. The four of us had done enough camping together that we knew what we were doing. We got there around late afternoon and found this clearing near what looked like it used to be a creek bed. It was completely dried up, but you could tell water had run through there at some point. The area was pretty isolated. We didn't see any other campers or even tire tracks from recent visitors. It was honestly perfect for the kind of vibe we were going for. We set up our tents in a loose cluster, maybe 15 feet apart from each other. Nothing fancy about the arrangement, just wherever the ground looked level and didn't have too many rocks. I don't even remember what we did that night. Probably just drank a few of the beers we brought while playing cards. We were all pretty tired from the drive, so we called it around 11 and went to our separate tents. I remember sleeping really heavily that night, which was weird for me to begin with, but especially during a camping trip. Usually, even when I'm sleeping on a comfortable bed in a climate-controlled room, I wake up multiple times from being cold or needing to pee or whatever else. Point is, I'm a very light sleeper. And during a camping trip, forget it. I'm used to waking up at least 3 times. But that night, I felt completely knocked out, like I'd taken a sleeping pill or something. When I woke up the next morning, something felt off immediately. I unzipped my tent to get some fresh air, and then I just froze. I noticed it immediately. All 4 of our tents had been moved, like not ruffled or roughed up by an animal, actually moved. They were arranged in this perfect square formation around a pile of stones that definitely hadn't been there when we went to sleep. Part of me felt like I was still dreaming. That's how bizarre and borderline unbelievable the sight before me was. Each tent had been relocated maybe 20 or 30 feet from where we'd originally set them up. But that's not really what freaked me out. The stakes were still perfectly secured in the ground, and nothing inside any of the tents had been disturbed. My sleeping bag was exactly how I left it, my phone was still plugged into my portable charger, and all my other gear was in the same spot. Nothing was missing from my tent, which I checked, double-checked, and triple-checked. I thought I was going crazy. I yelled to wake up my friends. Kevin was the first one to emerge from his tent, and I didn't even have to explain the situation to him. I could see on his face that he was experiencing the same confusion I was. Ali and Seb crawled out a few seconds later, and as I watched them take a look around at the campsite, it was the exact same thing. None of us remembered anything. But then Ali mentioned that she'd had this really vivid dream about walking in a line through some kind of desert landscape while someone counted her steps out loud. And then Kevin chimed in saying he had a dream about being in the army marching alongside his fellow soldiers. Seb didn't remember having a dream and neither did I, but we found it odd that both Ali and Kevin had eerily similar dreams. The vibe between the 4 of us was really weird but hard to describe. It was almost like we were reading each other's minds. It's kind of hard to express the feeling, but it really did feel like we were more connected than we had been the night before, but in a bad way. I remember looking back and forth between them, trying to figure out what it was that I was feeling around me. The best way I can think to describe the feeling is what it would have felt like if there was a 5th person watching all of us who was also part of all of us. We examined the campsite a little more carefully, looking for clues or anything that would help us piece together what happened. At first, Kevin suggested that maybe we had just gotten really drunk and forgotten about what we did the night before. But this theory was shattered in about 5 seconds. We found these drag marks in the dirt leading from where each tent had originally been positioned to where they ended up. The weird thing was the drag marks stopped about 10 feet short of each tent's final location, like someone had dragged them partway and then lifted and carried them the rest of the distance. The pile of stones in the center was even stranger. There were exactly 4 stones, and they were balanced on top of each other like some kind of sculpture. It actually would have been pretty were it not for the circumstances. Kevin walked over to get a closer look, and as he was leaning in to examine the top stone, he tripped and ended up knocking the whole thing over. The stones just kind of tumbled to the ground, nothing dramatic. For a second, the 4 of us just stood there in silence, staring at the scattered stones. And then things went from a 5 to a 10. At the exact same time, all four of us started hearing this low rumbling sound coming from somewhere in the distance. It sounded like rocks grinding against each other. Not like an earthquake or anything, more like an old stone door being pushed open. Hearing that sound kind of sent us into a panic, and we all just started packing without even discussing things. Like I said before, it felt like we were reading each other's minds, and that also applied to our feelings. I could feel my friend's fear, and I knew they could feel mine. It was really freaky, 10 times freakier than it had been not 2 minutes ago. I don't think I've ever packed up a campsite so quickly in my life. Realistically, we were out of there in under 5 minutes, but it felt like an eternity in that moment. I'm not going to harp too much on what happened. I really don't like thinking about what happened that night, and I'm worried that if I think too much about it, it'll go from being a fever dream that sort of sits in the back of my mind to something more real. That was 5 years ago. Now, the four of us don't really see each other anymore, but I guess that's kind of how it goes as everyone gets older. Kevin moved to Denver after graduation, Allie's in grad school in California, and I think Seb moved to Chicago with his girlfriend. We keep in touch, but we've never really talked about that night since. My name is Simon. This happened last summer when I was 23. My girlfriend Cadence and I had been planning this camping trip for months, just the two of us. No cell service, no distractions. We'd been together for about a year and a half at that point, and honestly, things had been getting a little stale. Not bad, just routine. We figured a weekend in the woods would be good for us. We picked a spot in the Uhari National Forest in North Carolina. I'd been looking at different locations online for weeks, trying to find something that wasn't too crowded, but also wasn't completely isolated. The place I settled on was this campground about 3 miles down a Forest Service road. According to the reviews, it had maybe 6 or 7 sites total, and they were pretty spread out from each other. We left Friday afternoon around 3, stopped for supplies at a grocery store near the forest entrance, and made it to the campground just before sunset. The road getting there was rough, lots of potholes and loose gravel, but my truck handled it fine. When we pulled into the main clearing, I was honestly pretty satisfied with my choice. There were a few picnic tables scattered around, a couple fire rings, and the sites themselves were tucked back into the trees enough that you'd have some privacy. We drove around slowly, checking out the different spots. Most of them were empty, which was good. We passed one site that had a blue sedan parked there, but I couldn't see anyone around it. Cadence pointed to a spot at the far end of the campground, right where the road dead-ended into the forest. It had a decent clearing for the tent and was positioned so that the trees blocked the view of the other campsites. We spent the next hour setting everything up. Cadence is one of those people who's really particular about how things are arranged, so I mostly just followed her instructions. By the time we were done, it was starting to get dark. I got a fire going while Cadence made sandwiches, and for a while, everything felt exactly how it was supposed to be. We were sitting there, drinking beer, watching the flames, not really talking about anything important, just existing together, which I think was kind of the point. Around 10 or so, Cadence went to brush her teeth at the spigot near the picnic tables. I stayed by the fire, poking at it with a stick and finishing my beer. That's when I noticed someone standing at the edge of our site, just beyond where the light of the fire reached. I jumped a little, I'm not gonna lie, because I genuinely hadn't heard anyone walk up. The guy apologized for startling me and said he was camped over in the blue sedan and that he just wanted to introduce himself. His name was Aiden, and he looked to be about 30. He had this really intense way of maintaining eye contact that made me a little uncomfortable, but I obviously wasn't going to say anything. Cadence walked back towards us, and I could tell from the way her hips were swaying that she was not pleased with the interruption. Aiden noticed her, turned, and said she'd picked a good spot, real secluded. He mentioned he was solo camping, trying to get away from people for the weekend, which seemed kind of contradictory since he was literally standing at our campsite making conversation. And by the way, as soon as Cadence walked back, I didn't exist anymore. This guy Aiden's full attention was on my girlfriend, which wasn't exactly surprising, but weird as hell. We talked for another minute or two, and by we, I mean he talked at Cadence while she just gave him awkward reply after awkward reply, waiting for him to get the hint. Eventually, I butted in and told him we wanted to get some sleep because we were waking up early, and that got him to leave. As soon as he walked into the darkness, I noticed he didn't use a flashlight or anything, which I thought was a little odd. Cadence and I agreed about the weirdness of the whole thing and decided to try and forget about it. We stayed up for another hour or so, then put out the fire and went to bed. I don't remember falling asleep, but I do remember waking up, and the moment I woke up, I realized something was wrong. It took me all of 3 seconds to realize I had woken up to voices somewhere in the distance. It sounded like 2 people having a conversation somewhere near our campsite. I looked over and saw Cadence fast asleep, and that's when the guardian instinct in me kicked in. I didn't freeze or cower in the tent, but rather actually went out to investigate. I unzipped the tent as quietly as I could and poked my head out. The voices stopped almost immediately, like they had heard me, even though I thought I was being dead silent. As quickly as I could, I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, shining it around our campsite. But whoever had been there had either already left or was further away than I initially thought. Eventually, I went back inside the tent and tried to go back to sleep. It was a public campsite after all. This happened about 3 years ago when I was 25. My buddy Mark and I had been planning this backpacking trip for months. We were both burnt out from our desk jobs in Seattle, me in software development, him in marketing, and we craved an escape into real wilderness. We'd hiked together since college, tackling trails in the Cascades, but this time we wanted something raw and untouched. No marked paths, no ranger stations, just pure isolation. I spent weeks scouring online forums and old maps for hidden spots in the Olympic National Forest in Washington. I found mentions of abandoned logging roads from the 1940s that led deep into the rainforest, places where the canopy was so thick it felt like perpetual twilight. We packed our bags with essentials: dehydrated meals, water filters, a sturdy 2-person tent, bear spray, and emergency beacons, just in case. The drive from the city took about 4 hours, winding through misty highways until we hit the gravel access road. It was bumpy as hell, branches scraping the sides of Mark's Jeep like fingers on a chalkboard. We parked at a pullout that looked like it hadn't seen tires in years and shouldered our packs, hiking westward into the dense undergrowth. The air was thick with the scent of moss and decaying leaves, and the only sounds were our boots crunching ferns and the occasional bird call. After 6 grueling hours, crossing streams and pushing through thorny Devil's Club, we stumbled into a small meadow bordered by a babbling creek. It was idyllic: soft grass for the tent, a natural fire pit from a fallen log, and towering hemlocks forming a natural barrier. No trash, no footprints, perfect solitude. We pitched the tent, gathered dry wood, and started a small fire as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows that danced like specters. That first evening was great. We skewed hot dogs over the flames, cracked open some canned beers we'd hauled in, and swapped stories about old adventures and failed relationships. Mark joked about how this trip would reset our souls, and I laughed, feeling the stress melt away. As night fell, the forest came alive with subtle noises: rustling leaves, distant owl hoots, but nothing alarming. We doused the fire around 10 p.m. and crawled into the tent, zipping up tight against the chill. I drifted off quickly, lulled by the creek's murmur. But around 2 a.m. I bolted awake, heart pounding. At first I thought it was a dream, but then I heard it, faint whispering, like voices carried on the wind. It was indistinct, a low murmur that rose and fell, circling the tent. I lay still, straining to listen. Were there words? It sounded like shh, join, eternal, or something nonsensical, overlapping in hushed tones. Mark was snoring softly beside me, so I nudged him. "Dude, wake up, you hear that?" He grumbled, rubbed his eyes, and sat up. We both froze as the whispers intensified, now clearly multiple voices, 3, maybe 4, moving in a slow orbit around us. It wasn't wind, it was deliberate, probing. Grabbing our headlamps, we unzipped the door flap just enough to peer out. The beams cut through the darkness, illuminating ferns and tree trunks, but nothing moved. No eye shine from animals, no silhouettes of people. The whisper stopped abruptly, leaving only the creek. "Probably just the stream echoing off the rocks," Mark muttered, but his voice shook. We zipped back up and tried to sleep, but I tossed and turned, every rustle amplified in my mind. Morning brought weak sunlight filtering through the canopy. We brewed coffee and laughed off the night as paranoia from being too isolated. But as I stepped out to relieve myself, I noticed something that turned my blood cold. Encircling the tent, about 10 feet out, was a ring of shadowy impressions in the soft earth. They weren't footprints, more like handprints, but distorted, elongated fingers, splayed as if something had been pressing down from above, hovering without fully landing. There were dozens, overlapping in places, forming a perfect loop. Mark saw them too and went pale. What the hell made these? Bears don't do that. We searched the meadow but found no tracks leaving in or out, just that eerie circle. The day dragged on with unease. We hiked a wide loop around the area, climbing ridges for better views, but the forest felt impressive, like eyes were on us. We spotted no wildlife, which was odd for the Olympics. No deer, no squirrels, just silence. By afternoon, we returned to camp, built another fire early, and tried to relax. But as dusk fell, the whispers returned, bolder now. They started distant, then closed in, weaving through the trees. This time we could discern phrases. Stay with us. Shadows welcome. No light. It was like a chant, rhythmic and insistent. Panic surged. We yelled into the dark. Who's out there? This isn't funny. But the voices only grew, echoing back mockingly. We couldn't take it. Dousing the fire, we frantically packed in the beam of our lamps, hearts racing. As we shouldered our bags and started hiking out, I glanced back and swore I saw shapes in the tree line. Tall, wispy figures that shifted like smoke, blending into the trunks. They didn't pursue, but the whispers followed us for the first mile, fading only as we hit the old logging road. We made it to the Jeep by dawn, exhausted and silent. Driving home, Mark admitted he'd felt a pull, like the voices were inviting him to stay. We never went back to that forest. Even now, in the city, on quiet nights, I hear those whispers in the back of my mind, urging me to return to the shadows. I'm Emily, and this took place last fall when I was 29. After a brutal breakup with my fiancé of 5 years, he'd cheated and it shattered me. I needed to reclaim my independence. Camping had always been my therapy. I grew up in upstate New York, hiking the Adirondacks with my family, learning survival skills from my dad. So I planned a solo trip, 4 days dispersed camping off a lesser-known trail in the High Peaks wilderness. No cell service, just me, my thoughts, and nature. I packed meticulously, a one-person tent, sleeping bag rated for cold nights, freeze-dried food, a multi-tool, bear canister, and a satellite messenger for emergencies. The spot I chose was about 5 miles in, a secluded clearing with panoramic mountain views far from popular routes. The hike in was invigorating. Autumn leaves crunched underfoot, the air crisp with pine and earth. I reached the site by mid-afternoon, set up camp facing east for the sunrise, and spent the evening journaling by a small fire. The solitude was healing, no distractions, just the wind whispering through the trees. I turned in early, reading a book by lantern light until sleep came, accompanied by distant owl calls and rustling wildlife. The second morning, I woke refreshed and decided to explore. Gathering firewood, I ventured deeper into the woods, following a faint game trail. About 50 yards in, hidden among overgrown brambles, I found it. A small, dilapidated cabin. It looked straight out of a horror movie. Log walls sagging, roof caved in on one side, windows shattered with jagged glass like teeth. The door hung crookedly on rusted hinges, creaking in the breeze. No one had mentioned this on the forums. It must have been from the old mining era. Curiosity overrode caution. I called out, "Hello?" But only silence answered. Pushing the door open, a musty stench hit me. Mold, rot, and something metallic, like old blood. Inside was sparse, a rickety table, a toppled chair, and walls etched with deep gouges, claw-like scratches running floor to ceiling in frantic patterns. On the table lay a faded leather-bound journal, pages brittle and yellowed. I flipped it open carefully. The entries were from the 1950s, penned by a trapper named Elias Crow. He wrote of harsh winters, successful hunts, but then the tone shifted. Night visitors again, eyes glowing in the dark, watching from the trees. Later, they scratch at the door, whispering my name. I barred it, but they find ways. The final page, dated March 1957, was scrolled hastily. They're inside now. God help me. A chill ran down my spine. Was it delirium or something real? I snapped a photo with my camera and left the journal, hurrying back to camp. the forest suddenly feeling hostile. That afternoon, clouds gathered, and by evening a thunderstorm unleashed torrents of rain. I hunkered in my tent, rain drumming on the nylon like fingers tapping. Around midnight it started, knocking, slow, methodical. Knock, knock, on the tent wall. Then pausing, it moved counterclockwise around me, deliberate, as if testing. My pulse thundered. "Who's there?" I shouted, voice cracking. The knocking quickened, now from multiple sides, like several hands at once. I fumbled for my knife, hard in my throat, and slashed open the door flap, beaming my flashlight into the downpour. Sheets of rain, swaying branches, nothing. The knocking ceased, but sleep evaded me, every gust mimicking the sound. Dawn broke, gray and soggy. Inspecting my tent, I found the stakes half pulled, as if yanked by unseen hands. Worse, a muddy trail of boot prints, old-fashioned, heavy-treaded, led from the cabin straight to my sight, stopping inches from the door. They weren't mine. The size was larger, and they vanished into the underbrush without return tracks. Dread coiled in my gut. I broke camp swiftly, packing wet gear, constantly scanning the trees. As I hiked out, I felt watched, branches snapping behind me, but when I turned, empty forest. Halfway back, a whisper on the wind. "Emily, stay." I ran the last mile to the trailhead, breathless. Later, I reported it to a ranger station. The older ranger frowned at my description. "That cabin from the old Crow place. Elias vanished in '57. Search parties found scratches inside, but no body. Folks say it's haunted by whatever drove him mad." He advised avoiding it. I haven't solo camped since. The knocking echoes in my nightmares, and sometimes, in quiet moments, I hear my name whispered, pulling me back to that forgotten place. This is my personal account, Alex Rovera, of the harrowing events that unfolded in the summer of 2020 when I was 28 years old. I was a graphic designer in Chicago, trapped in a small one-bedroom apartment during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic. My days were a monotonous blur of Zoom meetings, pixel-perfect edits, and delivery food wrappers piling up like snowdrifts. The isolation gnawed at me, friends scattered, family distant, the city's vibrancy reduced to siren wails and masked strangers. Anxiety attacks struck without warning, my sleep fractured by nightmares of endless confinement. I longed for escape, for open skies and human connection beyond screens. The idea sparked in our old college group chat. Sarah Klein, 27, a high school teacher in Milwaukee, was struggling with virtual classrooms and restless students. Mike Patel, 29, an engineer from Minneapolis, had been laid off, his days filled with job applications and uncertainty. Jenna Lopez, 28, a nurse in St. Paul, bore the brunt, long shifts in overflowing hospitals, witnessing death daily, her eyes shadowed in our video calls. "We need a break," Sarah typed one evening, "somewhere safe, away from people. The Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness in Minnesota, lakes, forests, no crowds." I'd heard of the BWCA, over 1 million acres of interconnected lakes and boreal woods on the Canadian border, a paddler's paradise where motors were banned, preserving pristine silence. It seemed ideal, a bubble from the virus with social distancing built in. We planned virtually, securing permits online, renting gear to avoid stores. We'd meet in Eiley, launch from Moose Lake, and spend a week island hopping, fishing, and reconnecting. "It'll be therapy on water," Jenna said, her voice weary but hopeful. We converged in Eiley on a misty July morning, masks on as we loaded 2 aluminum canoes at the outfitter. Gear was minimalist, bear-proof food packs with dehydrated meals, 2 tents, sleeping pads, life jackets, fishing rods, a comprehensive first aid kit with extra sanitizer. Sarah and Jenna shared one canoe, Mike and I the other. We pushed off, paddles slicing the glassy water, fog swirling like ghosts. The first portage, a half-mile carry over rocky trails, tested our endurance, backs aching under packs, sweat mingling with bug spray. Conversation flowed, Sarah on adapting lessons for screens, Mike on reskilling for remote work, Jenna on the emotional toll of PPE and patient goodbyes, me on the creative block from isolation. By afternoon, we reached Knife Lake, a serpentine waterway dotted with pine-cloaked islands. We selected a small one, an acre of granite and sand with a beach for landing and a grove for wind protection. "Home sweet home," Mike equipped, tying the canoes high on shore. Setup was swift. Tents pitched on flat moss, food pack hoisted 10 feet up a tree to deter bears, a fire ring built from stones. We swam in the frigid lake, the water shocking away urban grime, emerging refreshed. Fishing lines cast from the beach yielded walleye, which we grilled over the fire with potatoes. As dusk fell, the lake mirrored the sunset, loons calling their haunting wails. Around the flames, we opened up deeper. Sarah's fears of burnout, Mike's financial stress, Yenna's PTSD from the wards, my sense of drifting purposelessness. "This place is magic," Sarah said, stars twinkling above. The silence was profound. No waves lapping, no wind rustling, just the occasional crackle of wood. We retired to the tents, the nylon walls thin barriers to the wilderness. Around midnight, the tranquility shattered. A heavy splash echoed across the water, as if a large object had plunged in. Then another, nearer the shore. I unzipped the tent flap, peering into the inky blackness. The lake was still, but concentric ripples disturbed the surface, lapping at the beach. "What was that?" I whispered to Mike, who grumbled awake. "Beaver slapping its tail, maybe." But then a low hum vibrated through the ground, building to a resonant thrum that shook the tent poles in our bones. The water trembled, small waves forming in patterns like fingerprints. Sarah and Jenna emerged, flashlights dancing. "Is it an earthquake?" Jenna asked, voice tight. The vibration lasted a minute, then subsided, leaving us breathless. We swept the lake with beams, nothing but dark water and distant islands. "Freak natural phenomenon," Mike suggested. Uneasy, we returned to sleep, the silence now oppressive. Morning revealed anomalies. The canoes pulled well above the waterline were half submerged, as if dragged back by unseen hands. "Some kind of current?" Sarah pondered, bailing them out. Around the campsite, in the soft soil, were footprints, broad, webbed impressions like those from scuba fins or mutated feet. They encircled the tents in a loose loop, trailing into the lake but not emerging from it. "Animal tracks, otters or something," Jenna guessed, but they were too large, too deliberate. Mike joked about lake monsters, but the humor fell flat. We broke camp, paddling to a larger island with a cliff overlook for better visibility. The new site offered panoramic views, a rocky shore, and thicker woods. We explored, foraging for blueberries, the day passing in relative normalcy. Fishing yielded more walleye, and we shared stories of college antics, laughter echoing across the water. Night brought recurrence. The hum started subtly, bubbles rising from the depths with a foul, fishy odor like rotting algae. The vibrations intensified, the lake surface boiling in spots. Then voices, muffled, burbling, as if spoken underwater. "Come down, join us, it's safe here." Pleading, overlapping, like a chorus of the drowned. We huddled by the fire, paddles as makeshift weapons, hearts racing. "What the hell is this?" Mike demanded. The sounds faded after an hour, but sleep was restless, dreams of sinking into abyss. The third day dawned clear, but tension lingered. During a group swim to cool off, Sarah vanished. One moment she was floating on her back, chatting about returning to teaching, the next gone, the surface unbroken, no splash or struggle. "Sarah," we screamed, diving in. The water was murky, visibility poor, weeds grasping at limbs. Mike spotted a trail of bubbles leading to the lake center. We canoed out, plunging repeatedly, lungs burning. Hours passed in frantic search, our calls echoing unanswered. As despair set in, she washed ashore, gasping, skin pruned and cold. "They pulled me under," she croaked, coughing water. "People down there, pale faces, gills like fish, webbed hands reaching. A whole town below, houses, rusted cars, streets covered in silt. They whispered, 'Stay with us, the world above is ending.'" Her arms bore circular marks, like sucker imprints, red and raw. We wrapped her in blankets, force-fed warm tea. Jenna diagnosed hallucination from lack of oxygen. A doubt crept in. I recalled vague histories. The BWCA's past involved logging dams and mining camps, some flooded by dam breaks or rising waters. Research post-trip revealed tales of drownings, rapids claiming lives in the 1800s, flash floods from burst dams in southern Minnesota, like the Rapidan, where towns were inundated, residents lost. Legends spoke of water spirits or ghosts of the drowned, luring the living with whispers. Our island perhaps above a submerged settlement from the early 1900s, when mining booms gave way to abandonment and floods. Storms rolled in that afternoon, unnatural waves churning the lake despite calm winds, lightning cracked, rain pelting like bullets, our canoe swamped, gear floating away, food packs 1 tent lost. Stranded, we sheltered under tarps, the hum returning nightly, voices clearer, our names pleas for company. Shadows rose in the water, silhouettes of figures, hands breaking the surface, grasping air. Jenna fended one off with a paddle, its touch icy. We built signal fires, smoke billowing, but no rescuers appeared. Days blurred, rationing remaining food, fishing in downpours, morale crumbling. Sarah muttered of the drowned calling. Mike snapped in frustration. Jenna bandaged blisters. I journaled to stay sane. On day 5, rangers spotted our smoke, motoring in, emergency exception to no motor rule. Lucky we saw you, one said. This lake's got a dark rep. Drownings over years, unexplained. Old logging dams broke, flooding camps. Ghosts, some say. We were evacuated, silent in the boat, the silent lake watching. Back in civilization, we scattered. Sarah sought therapy for aquatic phobias. Mike found work but avoided water. Jenna returned to nursing with renewed vigor. I redesigned my life, moving to the mountains. We don't discuss it, but I steer clear of lakes. Their silence conceals horrors, echoes of the drowned, waiting below. My name is Rebecca Thompson, and this story takes me back to the sweltering summer of 2018, a period when my life felt like it was crumbling under the weight of betrayal and loss. I was 32 years old then, a high school English teacher in the bustling suburbs of Phoenix, Arizona, where the heat waves mirrored the turmoil in my heart. My marriage to Greg had spanned 8 long years, filled with what I thought were shared dreams and unbreakable bonds. But it all unraveled when I discovered his year-long affair with his secretary, a woman half his age with a laugh that echoed in my nightmares. The divorce proceedings were brutal, endless court dates, accusations flying like daggers, and the kids caught in the crossfire. Tommy, my rambunctious 10-year-old son, retreated into a shell, spending hours glued to his video games, his once bright eyes dulled by confusion. Lily, my sweet 7-year-old daughter, suffered from night terrors, waking up screaming for a daddy who was no longer there. I felt like a failure, a mother who couldn't shield her children from the storm. The house, once filled with laughter, now echoed with silence and unspoken pain. In the midst of this chaos, my older brother David called one evening. David was 35, a seasoned park ranger with the National Park Service stationed in Flagstaff. He'd always been my anchor, the adventurous sibling who, as kids, would lead me on treks through the arid deserts and towering canyons of our home state. "Becca," he said, his voice steady over the phone, "you and the kids need a break. Come camping with me. I know a spot in the Kaibab National Forest, right on the northern rim of the Grand Canyon. It's off the grid, dispersed camping, no crowds, just peace and stars. I've been there a dozen times. It's safe, and it'll be good for all of you." I hesitated. The idea of managing 2 young kids in the wilderness while my emotions were raw seemed overwhelming. But when I mentioned it to Tommy and Lily over dinner, their faces lit up for the first time in months. Tommy talked excitedly about building forts and catching lizards, while Lily dreamed of collecting pretty rocks for a fairy garden. Their enthusiasm tipped the scale. "Okay," I told David, "let's do it." We set the date for mid-July during my summer break from teaching. Preparation became a therapeutic ritual. I took the kids to the local REI store, where we spent an afternoon picking out gear. Tommy chose a bright blue sleeping bag, insisting it was adventure-proof, while Lily opted for a pink one with unicorn patterns. We bought a spacious dome tent with mesh panels for stargazing, lightweight backpacks, and headlamps that made them feel like explorers. David emailed a detailed packing list: water purification tablets, a comprehensive first aid kit, bear spray, though he assured me encounters were rare, insect repellent, and a satellite phone for emergencies, since cell service would vanish deep in the forest. I handled the food, coolers packed with kid-friendly meals like peanut butter sandwiches, hot dogs, fresh fruits, and ingredients for s'mores. I even included board games like Uno and Jenga, envisioning rainy afternoons filled with laughter. The kids helped pack their own bags. Tommy stuffed in his favorite Marvel comics and a magnifying glass for investigating bugs, while Lily carefully placed her stuffed bear, Mr. Fluff, in a special pouch. As we loaded the SUV the morning of our departure, the sun rising over the Phoenix skyline, I felt a flicker of hope. This trip could be our turning point, a chance to rebuild as a family. The drive north was a 5-hour journey through changing landscapes. We left the saguaro-studded Sonoran Desert behind, climbing into the cooler elevations of the Colorado Plateau, where ponderosa pines began to dot the horizon. The kids played car games, I Spy, spotting red rock formations and distant mountains, while I listened to podcasts on mindfulness to steady my nerves. In Flagstaff, we met David at a quaint gas station cafe, his rugged truck already loaded with firewood, fishing poles, and extra tarps. "Uncle David," Lily squealed, running into his arms. He ruffled Tommy's hair and handed out trail mix bars. "Ready for the wild?" he asked with a grin. We caravaned the final hour, turning off the highway onto a gravel Forest Service road that wound through dense woods. The path narrowed, potholes jostling us, low branches scraping the vehicle's sides like whispered warnings. David communicated via walkie-talkie. "Almost there, just a few more bumps." Finally, we emerged into the campsite, a broad clearing perched on the canyon rim with ample space for parking and tents. The ground was a fine red dust, scattered with resilient junipers and spiky yucca plants. To the east, the rim plunged about 50 feet to a winding creek bed, its walls layered in vibrant stripes of crimson, ochre, and sandstone. The panoramic view stretched endlessly, the sun casting a golden glow over the vast expanse. No signs of other campers, the only sounds were the gentle wind and occasional raven caws. "Welcome to paradise," David announced, stepping out and stretching. We dove into setup with enthusiasm. David and Tommy tackled the tents, our family dome rising like a blue igloo, its interior spacious enough for 3 sleeping bags side by side. Lily and I arranged the pads and bags inside, her giggling as she decorated with her rock collection. David constructed a fire ring from loose stones, lecturing the kids on safety. "Fire is a tool, not a toy. Always have water ready and never wander off alone." I unpacked the coolers, skewering hot dogs on sticks for our first meal. As the sun began its descent, painting the canyon in fiery hues of orange and purple, we gathered around the crackling fire. The temperature dropped quickly, a crisp contrast to Phoenix's oppressive heat. David regaled us with ranger tales, spotting elusive mountain lions, guiding lost hikers back to trails, beyond the time he helped deliver a baby elk. The kids roasted marshmallows, their faces illuminated by the flames, sticky fingers waving in delight. Tommy asked about the canyon's history, and David obliged, with stories of the ancient peoples. This land was home to the ancestral Puebloans, sometimes called Anasazi, a Navajo word meaning ancient enemies, though that's controversial now. They built cliff dwellings and kivas, underground chambers for ceremonies. Legends say they vanished mysteriously, leaving behind petroglyphs and spirits that still whisper in the winds. Lily yawned, her head on my lap, and I carried her to the tent, tucking Mr. Fluff beside her. Tommy followed, clutching his comic. David and I lingered by the embers, the stars emerging like a blanket of diamonds. "This is healing, Becca," he said softly. "Give it time." I nodded, the canyon's vastness making my problems feel small. We doused the fire and retired, the wind's soft howl lulling us into slumber. The first night was uneasy for me, unfamiliar sounds, the kids' rhythmic breathing, but nothing alarming. Around 3 a.m., however, I jolted awake to a chilling call echoing from the creek bed below. "Mommy!" It was high-pitched, childlike, laced with desperation, bouncing off the rock walls in distorted waves. My pulse quickened. Was it Lily? I checked. She was asleep, her thumb in her mouth, peaceful. Tommy stirred beside her. "Mom, did you hear that?" he whispered, eyes wide in the dark. It's probably nothing," I replied, but the call repeated, "Mommy, help." It seemed to swirl upward, closer one echo, farther the next. I unzipped the tent flap, cool night air rushing in like a sigh. David was already outside, his headlamp casting a beam over the rim. "You heard it too?" I asked, joining him in my fleece jacket. "Yeah, sounds like a kid in trouble down there." We listened as it echoed a few more times, each cry tugging at my maternal instincts. David swept his light along the steep drop-off, jagged rocks, no visible path in the moonlight. Could be an echo from another campsite miles away, he said, though his tone held doubt. Sound travels strangely in canyons, bending around curves. We waited, tense, but the calls faded into silence. Unsettled, we returned to our tents. Tommy had dozed off again, but Lily whimpered in her sleep, murmuring, "Daddy." I lay awake, mind racing. What if it was a real child, lost and scared? But David was the expert. I trusted his judgment. Eventually, exhaustion pulled me under. Morning light dispelled the night's shadows, making the incident feel like a half-remembered dream. We brewed coffee on the portable stove, the aroma mixing with pine scent, and ate cereal with fresh berries I'd packed. The kids were energized, chattering about the day ahead. "Let's hike to the creek," David proposed, slinging a day pack with water and snacks. The path was a quarter-mile along the rim, a narrow trail switchbacking down the slope, gravel loose underfoot. Tommy led the way, pretending to be Indiana Jones, while Lily held my hand, her small fingers gripping tight on the steeper parts. At the bottom, the creek bed was a mosaic of smooth stones and shallow pools, remnants of monsoon rains. The canyon walls towered above, striped in geological history, layers of Kaibab limestone, Toroweap Formation, Coconino sandstone, each telling a story of ancient seas and deserts. The air was cooler here, shaded with the faint trickle of water over rocks. The kids squealed, splashing in the pools, their shoes off, toes wiggling in the cold. Tommy caught tadpoles in a plastic cup, examining them with his magnifying glass, while Lily built a fairy pool with pebbles. David and I set up fishing lines in a deeper section, casting for any trout hiding in the eddies. "See, last night was just the wind playing tricks," David said, reeling in a small shimmering fish. We cleaned it and cooked over a small fire on the bank, the kids thrilled to taste wilderness lunch, even if Lily picked at hers. After eating, we ventured upstream, the creek bed widening into a natural corridor. Boulders dotted the landscape like silent guardians, and the walls closed in, creating natural acoustics where our voices echoed back in playful repetitions. "Hello," Tommy shouted, laughing as the canyon replied. About half a mile in, Lily pointed excitedly. "Look, a hole." It was a small cave entrance, partially obscured by... My name is Jordan Hayes, and this took place in the fall of 2022, when I was 34. I was a software engineer in Seattle, buried in code and deadlines, my life a cycle of coffee-fueled nights and screen glare headaches. My wife, Mia, 32, a marketing consultant, felt the same. Our marriage strained by long hours and neglected date nights. We had 2 kids, Ethan, 8, obsessed with dinosaurs, and Sophia, 6, a budding artist with crayons always in hand. To reconnect, Mia suggested a family hiking trip. "Let's go to the Pacific Crest Trail," she said one evening over takeout. "Not the whole thing, just a section in the North Cascades. Fresh air, no Wi-Fi, quality time." I'd hiked parts of the PCT in college, loving the challenge, so I agreed. We planned a 4-day loop, start at a trailhead near Stehekin, camp at dispersed sites, end with a ferry ride across Lake Chelan. David, my old hiking buddy from work, 36 and single, joined us for safety. "I'll carry the heavy stuff," he joked. We packed meticulously. Lightweight tents, sleeping bags rated for 20 degrees, dehydrated meals, water filters, bare canisters, first aid kit, and a GPS device with SOS button. The kids got mini backpacks with snacks and toys. Ethan packed his dinosaur book, Sophia her sketchpad. As we drove the winding roads to the trailhead, the evergreen forests closing in, excitement built. "This is our adventure," Mia said, squeezing my hand. The trailhead was remote, a gravel lot with a wooden sign marking the PCT. We shouldered packs, mine 40 pounds with tent and stove, Mia's lighter with kids' gear, David's with food and tools. The kids bounced ahead, Ethan pointing at squirrels, Sophia collecting pine cones. The path climbed gently through old-growth firs, moss draping branches like veils. Sunlight filtered through, birdsong filling the air. We hiked 5 miles the first day, reaching a clearing by a stream for camp. David and I pitched the tents, family one for us, solo for him. Mia started the stove for pasta, the kids helping star. That evening, around a small fire, permitted in the ring, we shared stories. Ethan recited dinosaur facts, Sophia drew the trees. David told mild ghost tales, making the kids giggle. As night fell, the forest hushed, stars piercing the canopy. We turned in, the stream's gurgle soothing. Around 2 a.m., I woke to rustling outside the tent. Thinking bear, I grabbed the spray, unzipping quietly. The noise circled, leaves crunching. "David," I whispered. His tent light flicked on. "Hear that?" he replied. The rustling stopped, but then a whisper, faint, like wind through leaves, but words. "Follow. Trail." We shone lights. Nothing. "Probably deer," David said. We slept fitfully. Morning brought fog, the trail vanishing in mist. We ate oatmeal, packed up. The path narrowed, roots tripping us. Ethan complained of tired legs, so we took breaks. At noon, we found a viewpoint, mountains rolling like waves. But as we descended, the trail changed. Markers gone, the path forked unexpectedly. "This wasn't on the map," David said, checking GPS. "Signal weak, but it showed we were en route." We took the left fork, but after an hour, it dead-ended at a cliff. Backtracking, the right fork looped strangely, bringing us back to the same spot. "Loop?" Mia asked, worried. The kids whined, hungry. We ate lunch, consulted the compass. Straight ahead, David decided. But the forest thickened, vines tangling, as if closing in. By afternoon, panic set in. The GPS glitched, arrow spinning. "Battery low," I checked, full. Sophia cried, "I want home." We pushed on, but the trail vanished entirely, ground swallowed by ferns. David climbed a tree for view, no landmarks, just endless green. As dusk approached, we camped in a small glade. The fire struggled to light, wood damp. That night, the whispers returned, louder. "Follow us." Deeper. Circling the tents. Ethan woke screaming, "Shadows, they have faces." We huddled, lights on. In the morning, our packs were rearranged, food scattered, but nothing missing. Footprints around camp, boot-like, but backwards, as if walking in reverse. Day 3 was hell. We bushwhacked, thorns tearing clothes, the forest a maze. Mia twisted her ankle, slowing us. Sophia's sketchpad had new drawings, not hers. Crude figures lost in woods, trails looping. "Who did this?" she asked. David found an old sign, rusted. "Beware the vanishing trail. Loggers lost 1910. Research later revealed history. The area logged in early 1900s, workers vanishing, blamed on disorientation. But legends of forest spirits, luring with whispers, trails shifting like living things. Native sailor tales spoke of shape-shifting entities punishing intruders. We activated the SOS. Hours later, rangers arrived by chopper. "Lucky," one said. "This section's notorious. Magnetic anomalies mess GPS, trails eroded fast." But we knew more. The whispers followed in dreams, calling us back. We sold our gear, stuck to parks. The forest claims its own. My name is Jordan Hayes, and this took place in the fall of 2022 when I was 34. I was a software engineer in Seattle, buried in code and deadlines, my life a cycle of coffee-fueled nights and screen glare headaches. My wife, Mia, 32, a marketing consultant, felt the same. Our marriage strained by long hours and neglected date nights. We had 2 kids, Ethan, 8, obsessed with dinosaurs, and Sophia, 6, a budding artist with crayons always in hand. To reconnect, Mia suggested a family hiking trip. "Let's go to the Pacific Crest Trail," she said one evening over takeout. "Not the whole thing, just a section in the North Cascades. Fresh air, no Wi-Fi, quality time." I'd hiked parts of the PCT in college, loving the challenge, so I agreed. We planned a 4-day loop, start at a trailhead near Stehekin, camp at dispersed sites, end with a ferry ride across Lake Chelan. David, my old hiking buddy from work, 36 and single, joined us for safety. "I'll carry the heavy stuff," he joked. We packed meticulously. Lightweight tents, sleeping bags rated for 20 degrees, dehydrated meals, water filters, bare canisters, first aid kit, and a GPS device with SOS button. The kids got mini backpacks with snacks and toys. Ethan packed his dinosaur book, Sophia her sketchpad. As we drove the winding roads to the trailhead, the evergreen forests closing in, excitement built. "This is our adventure," Mia said, squeezing my hand. The trailhead was remote, a gravel lot with a wooden sign marking the PCT. We shouldered packs, mine 40 pounds with tent and stove, Mia's lighter with kids' gear, David's with food and tools. The kids bounced ahead, Ethan pointing at squirrels, Sophia collecting pine cones. The path climbed gently through old-growth firs, moss draping branches like veils. Sunlight filtered through, birdsong filling the air. We hiked 5 miles the first day, reaching a clearing by a stream for camp. David and I pitched the tents, family one for us, solo for him. Mia started the stove for pasta, the kids helping Star. That evening, around a small fire, permitted in the ring, we shared stories. Ethan recited dinosaur facts, Sophia drew the trees. David told mild ghost tales, making the kids giggle. As night fell, the forest hushed, stars piercing the canopy. We turned in, the stream's gurgle soothing. Around 2 a.m., I woke to rustling outside the tent. Thinking bear, I grabbed the spray, unzipping quietly. The noise circled, leaves crunching. "David," I whispered. His tent light flicked on. "Hear that?" he replied. The rustling stopped, but then a whisper, faint, like wind through leaves, but words. "Follow. Trail." We shone lights, nothing. "Probably deer," David said. We slept fitfully. Morning brought fog, the trail vanishing in mist. We ate oatmeal, packed up. The path narrowed, roots tripping us. Ethan complained of tired legs, so we took breaks. At noon, we found a viewpoint, mountains rolling like waves. But as we descended, the trail changed. Markers gone, the path forked unexpectedly. "This wasn't on the map," David said, checking GPS. Signal weak, but it showed we were en route. We took the left fork, but after an hour, it dead-ended at a cliff. Backtracking, the right fork looped strangely, bringing us back to the same spot. "Loop?" Mia asked, worried. The kids whined, hungry. We ate lunch, consulted the compass. Straight ahead, David decided. But the forest thickened, vines tangling, as if closing in. By afternoon, panic set in. The GPS glitched, arrow spinning. Battery low, I checked, full. Sophia cried, "I want home." We pushed on, but the trail vanished entirely, ground swallowed by ferns. David climbed a tree for view, no landmarks, just endless green. As dusk approached, we camped in a small glade. The fire struggled to light, wood damp. That night, the whispers returned, louder. "Follow us." Deeper, circling the tents. Ethan woke screaming, "Shadows, they have faces." We huddled, lights on. In the morning, our packs were rearranged, food scattered, but nothing missing. Footprints around camp, boot-like, but backwards, as if walking in reverse. Day 3 was hell. We bushwhacked, thorns tearing clothes, the forest a maze. Mia twisted her ankle, slowing us. Sophia's sketchpad had new drawings, not hers. Crude figures lost in woods, trails looping. "Who did this?" she asked. David found an old sign, rusted. "Beware the vanishing trail. Loggers lost 1910. Research later revealed history. The area logged in early 1900s, workers vanishing, blamed on disorientation. But legends of forest spirits, luring with whispers, trails shifting like living things. Native sailor tales spoke of shape-shifting entities punishing intruders. We activated the SOS. Hours later, rangers arrived by chopper. "Lucky," one said. "This section's notorious. Magnetic anomalies mess GPS, trails eroded fast." But we knew more. The whispers followed in dreams, calling us back. We sold our gear, stuck to parks. The forest claims its own. My name is Lucas Grant, and this harrowing experience unfolded in the crisp spring of 2023 when I was 29 years old. As a professional photographer based in Denver, Colorado, my life revolved around chasing the perfect shot. Vast landscapes for outdoor magazines, dramatic sunrises over the Rockies, and ethereal mists in hidden valleys. But the grind had worn me down. Endless client revisions, tight deadlines, and the pressure to outdo my last portfolio had led to burnout. I'd spend nights hunched over my computer, editing photos until my eyes burned, only to wake up uninspired. My girlfriend, Elena Ramirez, 27, noticed the change. She was a yoga instructor at a trendy studio in Lodo, teaching classes on mindfulness and balance, her own life a harmonious blend of poses and positive affirmations. "Lucas, you're losing your spark," she said one evening over a home-cooked vegan stir-fry. "We need to get out there, reconnect with nature. Let's climb Mount Evans." The views from the top will reignite your passion. Mount Evans, one of Colorado's famous 14ers, at 14,265 feet, was accessible by a scenic byway in summer, but in spring the road was closed due to snow, making it a true backcountry adventure. The idea appealed to me, the challenge of ascending through alpine terrain, capturing raw, unfiltered beauty with my camera. Elena's enthusiasm was contagious. She talked of meditating at the summit, feeling the Earth's energy. To make it a group effort, I invited my younger sister, Kara Grant, 25, a dedicated nurse at a local hospital. She'd always been the practical one in the family, the voice of reason during our childhood escapades. Kara brought along her boyfriend, Ryan Thompson, 26, a skilled mechanic who worked on high-end cars in Boulder. "Safety in numbers," Kara said when I called. "Ryan's great with gear, and I've got medical training if anything goes wrong." Ryan, with his easygoing laugh and toolbox mentality, joked about spotting Bigfoot on the slopes. We spent weeks preparing, turning our living room into a staging area. I packed my professional DSLR camera, extra batteries, wide-angle lenses for panoramic shots, and a drone for aerial views, weather permitting. Elena added her good vibes essentials, healing crystals like amethyst for protection and clear quartz for clarity, along with essential oils for calming scents. Kara focused on safety, a comprehensive first aid kit with altitude sickness meds like Diamox, oxygen cans for emergencies, bandages, and splints. Ryan handled the technical gear, insulated four-season tents rated for sub-zero tents, 0-degree sleeping bags, crampons and ice axes for icy sections, weatherproof jackets, MREs for quick meals, a portable jet boil stove, and a satellite communicator with GPS and SOS functionality. "No cell service up there," he reminded us. We trained with day hikes in the foothills, building stamina. The kids, no kids this time, just us four adults, free from parental duties, seeking personal renewal. The drive to the trailhead was a scenic prelude, twisting through the Mount Evans Scenic Byway from Idaho Springs, the road climbing steadily past evergreen forests and sparkling streams. Snow-capped peaks gleamed under a clear blue sky, anticipation building like the elevation. We parked at Echo Lake at 10,600 feet, the air already thin and invigorating, carrying the sharp scent of pine. Shouldering our packs, mine heavy with camera equipment, Elena's lighter with yoga mats and snacks, Kara's with medical supplies, Ryan's bulging with tools and food, we set off. The trail began gently, winding through quaking aspen groves where leaves shimmered like gold coins in the breeze. Wildflowers bloomed in vibrant patches, columbines, lupins, paintbrush, adding splashes of color to the green carpet. "Ethan, no, scratch that. No kids, just the rhythm of our boots on dirt, conversations flowing about work stresses and dreams." Elena led breathing exercises during breaks, helping us acclimate to the thinning oxygen. "Inhale the mountain's power," she said, her voice calm. As we ascended, the path steepened into switchbacks, the forest thinning to reveal rocky outcrops and distant vistas. We climbed steadily towards Summit Lake at 12,830 feet, the air growing colder, our breaths visible in puffs. By late afternoon, we reached the alpine tundra, a barren, windswept landscape where hardy crumholts twisted like bonsai against the elements. Summit Lake shimmered below, a turquoise jewel cradled in rock, surrounded by snow patches. We chose a sheltered spot for camp, away from the windswept bowl, anchoring the tents with rocks and guidelines against potential gusts. Ryan set up the jet boil, heating water for ramen noodles, the savory aroma cutting through the chill. Kara distributed energy bars, monitoring us for signs of altitude issues, headaches, nausea. As the sun dipped behind the peaks, casting long shadows, we gathered around the stove, fires restricted at this elevation. Stars emerged early, the Milky Way unfurling like a cosmic river. Ryan shared campfire-style stories of mountaineering mishaps, avalanches burying climbers, hypothermia claiming lives in sudden storms. "But we're prepared," he added, winking. Elena rolled her eyes, placing her crystals in a circle around us. "Positive energy only, guys. The mountain will bless us." We laughed, the camaraderie warming us more than the tea. Exhausted from the climb, we crawled into sleeping bags, the cold seeping through despite the insulation, the wind howling like a distant wolf. Midnight shattered the peace. A deep rumble echoed through the valley, not thunder, but the ominous tumble of rocks cascading down a slope. "Avalanche!" Ryan yelled from his tent, unzipping frantically. We all emerged, headlamps piercing the darkness, hearts racing. The slope above our camp appeared stable, no snow sliding, but the echoes reverberated like aftershocks. Then, cutting through the night, a cry. "Help!" Distant, pained, carrying on the wind. It sounded human, desperate, perhaps a hiker injured on the ridge. We scanned the tundra with our beams, barren rock, no movement. "Someone in trouble," Kara said, her nurse instincts kicking in. We called out, "Where are you? We're here!" Our voices swallowed by the vastness. Silence followed, broken only by the wind. "Could be an echo from miles away," Ryan suggested, though uncertainty laced his words. We waited, shivering in the sub-freezing air, but no more cries. Unnerved, we returned to the tents, sleep elusive as the mountains seemed to breathe around us. Morning brought a light dusting of snow, the ground crisp underfoot. We brewed coffee, the steam rising like spirits, and ate oatmeal packets for fuel. At the lake's edge, while filling water bottles, Elena noticed carvings on the boulders, ancient-looking symbols, ruins of circles intersected with crosses, spirals twisting inward. Vandals, she wondered, tracing them. They looked etched recently, the lines sharp against the weathered stone. Ryan, exploring nearby, found a tattered page caught under a rock, an old journal entry, yellowed and frayed. "Listen to this," he read aloud. "The summit curses those who climb without respect. Visions of the dead, madness descending like fog. The 1893 expedition lost 3 men to the mountain's wrath. Their cries still echo." We exchanged glances. Later, history checks revealed Mount Evans' dark past, named after a territorial governor, but sacred to the Ute people as Tawakachi, or Mountain of the Clouds. Early ascents in the 1800s were plagued with mountain fever, hallucinations, disorientation, blamed on altitude, but Ute legends spoke of guardian spirits punishing intruders, cursing them with illusions of the dead, trails twisting, minds unraveling. Undeterred, we pressed on to the summit. The road was closed for the season, buried under snow, so we followed the rugged trail, donning crampons for the icy crust. The path crunched underfoot, our breaths labored in the rarefied air. At 13,000 feet, headaches bloomed, pounding temples, nausea creeping. Altitude sickness, Kara diagnosed, distributing Diamox and oxygen puffs. We rested on boulders, sipping water, Elena meditating with her crystals. That's when the visions started. Shadows flitting on the ridge, human silhouettes that vanished when blinked at. "Trick of the light," I muttered, rubbing my eyes. But Elena whispered, "I see faces in the rocks, eyes watching." Ryan laughed it off, but his voice wavered. Pushing higher, the wind whipped like knives, snow flurries stinging. At the summit, the view was breathtaking, the Rockies sprawling in jagged majesty, Denver a distant haze. I snapped photos, the shutter clicking, but the camera glitched. LCD flickering, images distorted with ghostly figures overlaying the landscapes. The wind carried whispers. "Turn back, you are cursed." Faint, but undistinguishable, swirling around us. The descent became a nightmare. Thick fog rolled in from nowhere, visibility dropping to arm's length. The trail, clear on ascent, seemed to shift, switchbacks leading astray, markers obscured. "This way, David." "No," Ryan said, but we circled back to the same boulder thrice. Ryan slipped on ice, twisting his knee with a crack. Kara bandaged it swiftly, splinting with trekking poles, but he limped, slowing us. Night fell early, the fog a living shroud, forcing camp on a narrow ledge. Tents slook in gale-force winds, guy lines straining. The cries returned, closer. "Join us, the mountain claims you." Visions plagued our fitful sleep, apparitions of frozen climbers, faces blue and pleading, beckoning from the mist. I woke sweating despite the cold, Elena clutching her crystals, murmuring prayers. Ryan thrashed in pain, Kara administering meds. Morning revealed more horrors, our gear marked with ruins, painted in ash from nowhere. Ryan's knife was missing, found later stuck blade deep in the ground, etched with circles and crosses. "What the hell?" he growled. Fog lingered,